95% of cancer treatments fail clinical trials. But what if the problem isn't the drugs, it's the matchmaking? Today we dig into why Big Pharma is licensing AI models to solve oncology's sorting problem, how Ambient scribes just became healthcare AI's first real moneymaker, and the regulatory patchwork that's about to make every hospital CIO's life a lot more complicated. From a team at the Synthetic Daily, it's Friday, May 1st, 2026. Good to have you with us.
We went through about 8 posts, articles, and threads across LinkedIn, Substack, and YouTube over the past week to dive deeper into the world of AI in healthcare.
Here's a number that should trouble us all. 95% of cancer treatments fail to pass clinical trials. 95%. You hear that and you think, well, we just don't have good enough drugs. But Sean Wang, SWYX, if you follow the AI world, made a really compelling case this week on latent space that flips that assumption on its head. The problem isn't that the treatments don't work. It's that we're terrible at figuring out which treatment works for which patient with which specific tumor.
There's a reframing that matters enormously. Cancer isn't one disease. It's hundreds, maybe thousands, of distinct diseases, each with its own molecular signature, its own biology, its own behavior. SWYX paraphrased Tolstoy, all healthy cells are alike. Each cancer cell is unhappy in its own way. And that's not just a clever line. It's the operational reality that oncologists deal with every single day. When a drug fails a phase 3 trial, it might have worked brilliantly for 12% of the patients in that trial. But because we couldn't identify those 12% in advance, the whole thing gets labeled a failure.
So what's changing? Big pharma companies are now licensing AI models specifically designed to crack this matching problem. We're talking about models trained on massive digital pathology datasets, the kind of data that literally exceeds what human pathologists can process, to identify biomarkers and stratify patients before they ever enter a trial. The Pathologist Journal reported this month that pharmaceutical companies are using AI-powered digital pathology to advance biomarker discovery and patient stratification at a scale that was simply impossible 3 years ago. Meanwhile, Merck and Mayo Clinic just announced an R&D collaboration that combines Mayo's genomic and clinical datasets with Merck's AI-enabled virtual cell technologies. The explicit goal: better target identification, better patient matching, fewer wasted trials.
Which is wild, right? Because the implications here are staggering. We're not waiting for some miracle molecule. We may already have treatments sitting on shelves, drugs that technically failed, that could save lives if we just knew who to give them to. That's the promise anyway. And for the first time, the tools to deliver on it actually exist.
This next one surprised me. For years, the knock on AI in drug discovery was that it was always 5 years away from matching. Well, the receipts are starting to come in. Insilico Medicine's TNIK inhibitor, that's ISM 001-055 for the chemistry nerds, just posted positive phase 2A results for idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. This is a drug that was designed by AI from the ground up, and it's working in actual human beings. That's not a press release about potential. That's clinical data.
Let's dive in a little deeper. The infrastructure story is just as striking. Eli Lilly inaugurated something called LillyPad. And yes, the name is a little on the nose, but what it actually is deserves attention. It's the world's first NVIDIA DGX SuperPod running DGX B300 systems inside a pharmaceutical company. We're talking over 9,000 petaflops of AI performance. Lilly is using it to train protein diffusion models, small molecule graph neural networks, and genomics foundation models on 700 terabytes of proprietary genomic data. That's not a research experiment. That's a production facility for computational drug design.
And then there's the Recursion-Exscientia merger, which quietly created one of the most vertically integrated AI drug platforms on the planet. Recursion brought phenomic screening, essentially using automated microscopy and machine learning to observe how cells actually behave when you perturb them, and Exscientia brought precision chemistry and active learning from molecular design. Merge those together, and you've got something approaching an end-to-end system. Identify the target, design the molecule, predict the behavior, optimize the compound. The zasatinib story illustrates the pipeline in action. That's the TYK2 inhibitor originally designed by Nimbus Therapeutics using computational methods, now advancing into phase 3 trials.
What we're witnessing isn't AI replacing chemists. It's AI compressing timelines that used to take a decade into something closer to 3 or 4 years. And when you're talking about diseases where patients are running out of time, that compression isn't an incremental improvement. It's transformational.
If you want to know where AI in healthcare is actually making money right now, not in 5 years, not in some future regulatory utopia, but today, look at the doctor's office. Specifically, look at the thing doctors hate most: documentation. Ambient AI scribes, tools that listen to a patient visit and automatically generate clinical notes, hit $600 million in revenue in 2025, growing 2.5 times year over year. According to Menlo Ventures, it's healthcare AI's first genuine breakout category.
Right, and what's interesting is, the market is a three-way race. Microsoft's nuanced DAX Copilot holds about a third of the market. Abridge, the Pittsburgh startup, has 30%. And Ambient's healthcare is at 13% and climbing. What's notable is that a JAMA study across 5 academic medical centers actually quantified the impact. AI scribes reduced total EHR time by 13.4 minutes per encounter and documentation time by 16 minutes. Doctors got back almost half an extra patient visit per week. That doesn't sound like a lot until you multiply it across hundreds of thousands of clinicians. Suddenly you're talking about millions of additional patient encounters per year, system-wide.
The big tech companies clearly see the opening. OpenAI launched OpenAI for healthcare, complete with a HIPAA-compliant version of ChatGPT that's already rolling out to heavyweights like Memorial Sloan Kettering, Cedars-Sinai, HCA Healthcare, and UCSF. Google's not sitting still either. Quest Diagnostics built its new AI companion on Google's Gemini models, letting consumers analyze up to 5 years of their own lab results to spot trends their doctor might miss.
That connects to something else we saw. Here's why this matters beyond just saving doctors some typing. The documentation burden is one of the biggest drivers of physician burnout, and burnout is one of the biggest threats to the healthcare workforce. If ambient scribes can claw back even a fraction of the hours clinicians spend clicking through electronic health records, the downstream effects on retention, job satisfaction, and frankly patient care could be enormous. This is the unsexy, operational side of AI in healthcare, and it might end up being the most important.
Now, shifting gears a bit, radiology has dominated AI in medicine for years. It accounts for 71.5% of all FDA-cleared AI medical devices. But the next wave isn't just about reading images better. It's about reading images in context. Google's Med-Gemini is the clearest example of where this is heading. Built on the Gemini 3 architecture, it's designed to process multimodal medical data, X-rays, pathology slides, clinical notes, lab values, all at once. It scored 91.1% on standardized medical exam questions, which is impressive, but the real significance is architectural.
Picture this: an AI reading a chest CT that doesn't just flag a suspicious nodule. It also knows the patient is 67, has elevated calcium levels, smoked for 20 years, and had a previous scan 6 months ago that showed something smaller in the same location. That's EHR-aware AI, and early versions of it are already emerging in radiology departments. The Intuition Labs team has written extensively about this shift, moving from standalone image classifiers to what some people are calling an AI cockpit, where radiologists interact with a dashboard that synthesizes imaging, history, and risk scores in real time.
Google also released open research models, Med-Gemini for clinical language tasks and TX-Gemini specifically for drug development applications. The open-weight strategy here is deliberate. Google's betting that by seeding the research community with capable medical foundation models, they'll become the substrate that startups and hospitals build on top of. It's the Android playbook applied to healthcare AI.
I was reading through this and the FDA, to its credit, is trying to keep pace. Between 2015 and March 2025, the agency cleared over 1,000 AI-enabled devices, with 295 in 2025 alone. But here's the wrinkle. The FDA has signaled it wants to start tagging devices that incorporate large language models and foundation models. That's a meaningful transparency move. Hospitals and patients would be able to identify when an LLM is involved in a diagnostic tool versus a traditional machine learning classifier. The distinction matters because foundation models behave differently, update differently, and fail differently than the narrow AI tools the FDA has spent a decade learning to evaluate.
Let me bring up something related. If you're a hospital CIO or a health tech startup founder, here's the part of the show where you should start taking notes. As of early 2026, 43 states have introduced over 240 bills related to AI in healthcare. That's almost as many bills as in all of 2025, and we're not even halfway through the year. There is no comprehensive federal AI law. Instead, what we've got is a patchwork: HIPAA, high-tech, FDA guidance, executive orders, and now this tidal wave of state legislation, and the themes are all over the map.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Mental health AI has become a particular flashpoint. Utah, New York, and Nevada have already enacted laws regulating mental health chatbots, requiring clear disclosures when a patient is talking to an AI and mandating protocols for detecting suicidal ideation. California, Texas, and Illinois have gone further with laws focused on transparency requirements, human oversight of AI clinical decisions, and outright restrictions on AI use in certain care settings. If you're building a mental health app that uses an LLM, you now need a state-by-state compliance map that looks like a game of regulatory whack-a-mole.
The payer side is getting attention too. Multiple states are moving to regulate how insurers use AI in medical necessity determinations and prior authorization. Basically saying you can't let an algorithm deny someone's surgery without a human reviewing that decision. That's a direct response to reporting over the past 2 years about health insurers using automated systems to reject claims at scale.
Foley and Lardner published a detailed analysis of how HIPAA's minimum necessary standard and de-identification requirements apply specifically to AI systems processing protected health information. The short version: most healthcare organizations are not yet compliant with how their AI tools handle data, and they may not even know it. The gap between what the technology can do and what the legal framework permits is widening, not narrowing. For every hospital rushing to deploy Ambient scribes and diagnostic AI, there's a compliance team scrambling to figure out whether their data processing agreements actually cover what these models are doing with patient information. It's the least glamorous story in AI healthcare, and arguably the most important.
All right, let's zoom out and talk about the bigger picture. What are the main themes running through everything we covered today? The first big theme is the matching economy. AI's most immediate value in medicine may not be inventing new treatments, but optimizing the allocation of existing ones, turning drug development from a discovery problem into an information problem.
Next, revenue before revolution. Healthcare AI's commercial viability is being proven first in operational efficiency tools like documentation, creating the economic foundation that will fund riskier clinical applications downstream.
Next, context is competitive moat. The shift from single-modality classifiers to EHR-aware multimodal systems means the winners in medical AI will be determined less by model accuracy and more by depth of clinical data integration.
And the last one, regulation by fragmentation. The absence of federal AI legislation is producing a compliance burden that disproportionately favors large health systems and incumbents over the startups most likely to innovate. So if you're going to take away a few things from today's episode, here's what I'd remember.
Number 1. The drugs that could save millions of cancer patients may already exist. We just need AI to tell us which patient gets which one.
Number 2. Ambient scribes are doing for physician burnout what spell check did for typos. Not glamorous, but the productivity math is undeniable at scale.
Number 3. If your health AI product touches patients in more than a few states, your regulatory compliance burden just became a full-time job, and the rules are still being written.
And finally, the FDA's move to tag LLM-powered medical devices signals that regulators understand foundation models are a fundamentally different beast than traditional classifiers.
That's the Synthetic Daily for today. All the sources and links are on the website if you want to dig deeper.
Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.